I want you to build up on cold start, right? Now, India's cold start doctrine remained unacknowledged for many years. I think General Rawat was the first to actually acknowledge that there is a cold start doctrine. General Vij's book talks very interestingly about how over several years, 10 military exercises were actually conducted to test it, to tweak it, to establish it, to practice it, and so on. What is cold start? Very simply, it is a doctrine that allows for the quick deployment of troops on the western border within days so as to not be hampered in the way that we were in Kargil, if Kargil had led to a full-blown war, or in Parakram, where, mobilization took as long as it did, and then there was no war. I'll start with you, General Shukla, and then I'll come to General Vij and General Hasnain. Cold start. If you had to explain India's cold start doctrine and its application today, and the integrated battle groups at the heart of cold start, how have we done so far on keeping this doctrine agile?
See, the cold start worked. Once it was put into effect, it worked very well. And I can tell you, I commanded 10 Corps when Balakot happened. We were very well poised to do a lot of things which cannot be spoken about on public platforms. And the adversary knew it very well. So if you say what was the effect of cold start, they gave us a number of options. And it is during, just before Balakot, General Rawat visited me. And I'm sure he visited many other corps, and we had definite options. So we were far well prepared. But what cold start actually did, and I think you referred to it, it was, we found during Parakram that the pace of mobilization of our strike corps was not good enough. And there was considerable potential within the holding corps which could be unlocked. And that was done, and the holding corps were far better poised. The strike corps also, they were organized and moved around a little bit to make sure that the credibility of our attack became better. This was precisely what was missing in Parakram. And we did it a little later. And that brings me to the other point that, the only point of studying history is that if you learn for it and prepare from the future. So when we study Parakram and we study cold start, we must now revalidate the lessons in terms of the China contingency and not wait for a China problem to occur and then do another. So that would be the most valuable lessons. But my short answer to your point is that cold start also got the Pakistanis worried. In many ways, and at least the deterrence, along the IB where the cold start doctrine was to be executed was considerable, and the Pakis did get worried. So the cold start from the point of initiation to the point of maturation, which is around the time of Balakot when I last saw it, was in pretty good shape, and the message had gone across to the Pakis.
General Vij, your book talks about how it was not acknowledged as a doctrine, and that's obvious. It was a new way of thinking. It was a new military approach. It was a new sort of war gaming, and there was no need to acknowledge it. But General Rawat actually went public with it, right? What did you think of that? The fact that it was after many years of being not disavowed exactly, but never acknowledged officially, it was finally acknowledged officially as our way of military thinking or preparedness.
Yes, by that time, I think a lot of time had passed between me and General Rawat. And it really perhaps wouldn't have made any difference. And he also didn't speak in very clear terms, but he gave away the idea. But in between, what had happened was that we had carried out 10 exercises to test the concept. Because in the army, it is customary that when you think of a new idea, you try and test it on the ground. Because ground and the ops room are two different things. And we started with the exercise Divyasta and finished the last exercise with the name Yodha Shakti. Till that time, we did really openly talk about it when Pakistan had sent in. And they also did a series of exercises, 6 exercises, as may know, that is mean new resolve. And they had started worrying about our strike corps and how we can go deeper into their area, and they had thought that perhaps the only way to stop the Indian Army onslaught by the strike corps is by trying the tactical nuclear weapons. And that created even a further problem for us, because even for reaction to an insurgency and Proxima operation, Indian Army was put under restraint or kept under restraint so that there is no nuclear reaction from the Pakistani side. So even for the conventional operation, we felt somewhat restricted.
I want to
Yeah.
take this last point to General Hasnain, because one of the things you write in your chapter on cold start, and if we can go to the last slide, is that although India has a no first use doctrine when it comes to our nuclear weapons, General Hasnain, General Vij argues that he wants a slight modification to that doctrine. And he says that modification is that India must have the right to preempt an imminent Pakistan nuclear strike. So although we are committed to no first use, General Vij in his book argues that that cannot apply. That cannot apply to a situation where there is knowledge of an imminent Pakistan nuclear strike. Your take, sir.
Barkha, first, let me just say briefly what is cold start, and another terminology which has not entered into our discussion so far. It's a question of semantics and nothing more than that. Proactive strategy. The Indian Army preferred to call it proactive strategy all these years until General Rawat came back again and spoke about cold start. There was nothing, no major difference. I've discussed this issue with a lot of Pakistani generals on track 2 also. And I can tell you it had Pakistan by its throat. If you remember, General Musharraf once wrote that he had the Indian Army by its throat in Kargil. I think the Indian Army had them by their throat as far as the cold start doctrine or proactive strategy was concerned. An effect of that was that the Pakistan Army started moving its formations forward. As it is, Pakistan has got a major advantage that its cantonments are so close by. Lahore has got 2 divisions located within Lahore, a corps headquarters and 2 divisions with all its artillery is located inside Lahore. India doesn't have that luxury. We've got our cantonments and our formations kept back slightly in depth, and they take their time to mobilize. This is something that the public has to be made to understand. But we have taken our necessary measures. The corps I commanded, the corps General Vij commanded, that itself, you've had lots of changes of locations, etc. And we are in a far, far better position today to respond. The principle simply is you don't have to have the entire war machine on the border before you start assaulting. Everything happens. People go as they come. That is what you have to get used to in a cold start or a proactive strategy. This is what the IBGs or the integrated battle groups are all about. Let them go. Let them go. Initially, they will have smaller forces of Pakistan to respond to. As the Pakistani forces build up, so do yours. You look for openings. You look for tactical maneuvers by which you create the conditions for your occupation of ground. To come to your specific question on the doctrine, the nuclear doctrine, I'm firmly of the belief, Barkha, you may give out any doctrine. What prevents you from overturning that doctrine on the day when you want to go to war? These doctrines are not meant for anything else. I mean, these are for your planning purposes. This is for your political community, for your nation to be prepared with, you have a certain type of thinking, etc. But I personally strongly feel doctrines can also be used for deception. And the moment you find a threat which is exuding in front of you, you change your policy. You don't have to take sanctions from the United States of America to change your policies.
Absolutely,
People
absolutely.
who talk about this, I think they take it to ridiculous limits to say that we need a change of policy. You change your policy anytime you want. Have
Absolutely.
a steady policy and the flexibility to maneuver with that policy based on the situations.
Absolutely, and I think we all agree with what you've just said.